Paul Suellentrop with the Wichita Eagle and Kansas.com. We're here to talk about 7 monumental minutes, the Wichita State basketball program. I'm here with 3 guys that bring the Shockers to you on the radio: Dave Dahl, Bob Hull, and Mike Kennedy. And we just got done watching about the last 7 minutes of that Gonzaga game in 2013. Now we're going to talk about it briefly, kind of how it affected things going forward. First, let's just run through it and give us what was your lasting memory from that game, from that last 7 minutes. Mike, we'll start with you.
I think at that point we didn't know quite what to expect. Wichita State hadn't been in that position for a few years, and Gonzaga was the #1 team in the country. So I think my first feeling was almost anything's possible now. And who knows what could happen from this point on, plus just sheer exhilaration of winning that kind of a game.
Definitely. Dave, you were here in Wichita watching it on TV. What was going through your mind? What do you take away from that game?
I felt we didn't back down from them. They were a very good team. I thought we played superbly offensively, but we played our normal game defensively. And I thought it was a great coming out party for Fred VanVleet. I believe Marshall showed so much confidence in Fred that Fred carried that confidence over, and now it's lasted for 3 years with the Shockers.
And Bob, you were courtside with Mike. What do you remember from those moments?
I think my memory is going to be Fred hitting that fadeaway 3 with 1.5 minutes to go, and how big a shot that was. I'm going to remember that moment, and then the party afterwards when the team came over and the coaches came over and they were dancing in front of the band, and it was right to the right of us, and it was a big party right in front of our courtside spot right there.
Yeah, certainly Fred's shot that you brought up and that Dave kind of mentioned, one of those moments that people are going to remember. As far as on the court performance, what did those 7 minutes kind of reveal about what was to come the next 2 years for Wichita State basketball?
Well, I thought, even with the win over Pittsburgh, they'd showed, because I remembered the game with Pittsburgh a couple or 3 years earlier up at Kansas City, where it was a close game, but Pittsburgh was clearly more athletic, stronger, more physical, and I felt like those 2 games, even starting with Pittsburgh, but then especially with Gonzaga, that Wichita State had closed some of that gap, that it wasn't going to take out of the ordinary performance for them to have a chance against those caliber of people, that they had kind of arrived as a team that could play at that level of college basketball.
We had, I thought, better players than we did, more skilled players than we did. I thought Marshall really proved himself in that whole NCAA tournament. He proved that he was the equal of the other coaches in the NCAA tournament, and I felt his confidence, which is one of his strong suits, just carried over to his players.
Bob, Ron Baker and Fred VanVleet were freshmen that year, had a great role in this game, and that was definitely a big hint of what was to come.
Big coming out party for Fred VanVleet and Ron Baker. Ron hitting all those threes, Fred hitting the big 3 and those free throws at the end, and I thought it was really cool to watch those 2 young kids and realize, man, we're going to have these guys 3 more years. And so I thought it was definitely a big coming out party for those 2.
And not just the performances, but sort of the intangible. There was a confidence there, just a presence about both of them, that they didn't show any nerves, they didn't show any reaction to the pressure. They played like seniors already.
They expected to win.
Yeah.
They were winners. They won in high school and they expected to win.
And that's something that, however good other future players may be in the history of this program, that's something they'll have to prove, is that they have those inner qualities that those 2 guys have shown.
And they didn't blink when they got down in the second half. When Gonzaga made their run, you thought, uh-oh, things might not be so good for Wichita State. The Shocks didn't blink. They hung in there. It was one team scores, the other team scores. I thought that was very, very important the way they did that. And they continued to defend. They were holding teams to 35% from the field. Gonzaga was a team that shot almost 50% from the field all season. Wichita State held them to 35%.
I think Wichita State was kind of one successful entity up until about the 8-minute mark in that game, and then 20 minutes of real life later, it was something entirely different going forward. How was that game, that victory, how's that changed things for Shocker basketball?
I don't think it changed too much from a national perception right away. Even when they got to the Final Four, I think people saw that as maybe kind of a one-shot deal, and then they were 35-0 the next year. And even now, when they're ranked preseason in the top 10, top 15, they may not be getting actually as much recognition as they deserve, but I think internally it created that belief with these guys that have gone forward and continue to play here that we can play with anybody, we can accomplish anything.
It wouldn't have changed perception if we hadn't gone into LA and won as well. If we had just beaten Gonzaga and then lost in LA, I think people would have said, okay, it was a fluke. But then to go to LA and just take LaSalle apart and then beat Ohio State, the best team in the Big Ten, and have a big lead on them in the second half, I thought that kind of opened people's eyes to say, hey, Wichita State's for real.
Bob and Mike saw it up close. I saw it on TV, listening always as I do to Bob and Mike. But I thought for the first time on the big stage that they expected to win. You looked at the faces of the ball players, you looked at Marshall's face, and even though they were down a little bit with 7 minutes left, they expected to win the game. I thought that carried over into the LaSalle game, definitely carried over into the Ohio State game, even the Louisville game. I think they expected to win that game. And they carried that over to the very next season, and it's still there today.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that even in the Louisville game, well, once it was over, I think they not only felt like they could have won that game, but they should have won that game. I think that's how much their perspective changed in those couple of weeks, and then to have Rick Pitino say that was the best team we played all year, had the best demeanor of any team we played all year.
And who would have thought after the Gonzaga game that a year later we would be the #1 ranked team,
Yes,
undefeated, and we would get knocked off by what was Kentucky, an 8 or a 9. They were an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
How things flipped in 1 year.
Yeah, it was certainly one of the. I think people point to the NIT championship game, the Louisville game, the Kentucky game, but that Gonzaga game certainly had a big part in getting Shocker basketball where we know it today.
You know what I thought also, one of the big things with getting Shocker basketball moving in the right direction was that, although it was a loss, in Hawaii against Connecticut, I thought we were better than Connecticut was. We weren't luckier by any stretch of the imagination, but we were better, and you wondered, you know, I think things are really starting to gel with what Marshall had in his mind and what he's now putting on the floor.
They won the national title.
And they did that year. They wanted to win the national title, yes.
All right, well, Dave, Bob, Mike, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
I
Paul.
appreciate your memories and your time of that Gonzaga game. Thank you.
Fun.
Thank you so much.